Back with chapter 7 today of Frostheart, which is called No Other Choice. Ash joined the crowd in their stampede to the top of the battlements, everyone desperate to see what was happening. His heart raced as he climbed the wooden gangplank, pushed and shoved by the crush of people, nearly throwing himself over the battlements in his hurry to see out. There, racing towards the stronghold from the south, snow trailing behind it like a long white tail, was a Pathfinder sleigh. Ash's heart jolted. Pathfinders. All Fira were thrilled when Pathfinders arrived, especially since it was incredibly rare to find them so far north these days. But it was always particularly exciting for Ash. Deep down in his heart, he couldn't help hoping that his parents might be returning for him to scoop him up and make everything all right. He reached into his furs and grasped his ocarina. Could it be them? He didn't have long to wonder. The sleigh was under attack from 4 hurtlers, particularly hideous leviathans that looked very much like jaws on legs. Hurtlers didn't hide under the snows to catch their prey like lurkers and other such leviathans. They were so fast they didn't need to. They simply ran them down. But this time they seemed to be well matched. The enormous sleigh they were chasing was like a mini stronghold in itself, its huge bulk as high and mighty as stronghold walls, its massive runners as long as the alderman's lodge. Tall red sails rippled into the biting wind, the symbol of a snowflake woven into their designs. Large propellers and a sunstone-powered engine thrust the vessel forward at an incredible speed. The build knowledge of such a thing was beyond what normal strongholders could create, of course, and came from archaeomech, mysterious technology, and artefacts that were unearthed from the ruins of the world before. But despite this technical marvel, the hurtlers had no trouble keeping up with the sleigh, charging through the snow with their powerful legs, biting at the runners like wolves snapping at the feet of elk. Ash could see their song aura, a mess of frantic lashing shapes that trailed behind them like a crimson smoke. "Hunters, to your positions!" ordered the huntmaster. "Man the battlements! Load the harpoon launchers!" Ash watched the hunters take defensive positions along the wall, Toby alongside them, reminding Ash to yank down the mask he'd forgotten he should be wearing amid all the excitement. The Fira hunters scrambled, bows at the ready. Others pulled the cranks and aimed the large harpoon launchers that squatted on the walls. Toby drew an arrow from his quiver and knocked it to his bow. The sleigh itself was badly damaged, but the Pathfinder crew, little dots from this distance, were doing their best to fend off the monsters. Ash saw one jabber sphere right at a hurtler's great maw. This creature wrapped its long serpentine tongue round the shaft, twisted its head, and wrenched it from their hands, nearly pulling them over the side to their certain doom. Another hurtler screeched and rammed the sleigh, arrows clacking off its thick hide as the crew desperately tried to drive its back. Yet another tore deep rents into the sleigh's side, sending it swerving in the snow. The captain was clearly skilled, however, and pulled it back on the course with a skid. They sped towards the ramp that the Fira were now lowering from the wall, the large ropes that held it up creaking from the strain of the heavy wood. The Pathfinders had to make it, or they'd soon be torn to pieces. "Fire!" the huntmasters roared. Arrows and stones tore through the air. Some struck true and impaled the hard flesh of the leviathans, their blue lifeblood leaking from the wounds, but most of the missiles sank harmlessly into the snow, the hurtlers dodging the attacks, weaving and leaping out of the way without losing momentum. A harpoon launcher propelled its huge bolt with a loud ka-chunk, but this too hit nothing but the ground in a huge explosion of snow. "They're too fast," Ash said aloud. "They'll rip the sleigh to shreds before we manage to hit them," agreed a man beside him, raising his mask to get a better view. The hurtlers were ramming the sleigh in unison now, biting gashes into the splintering rudder, vicious serrated tongs, tearing chunks out of the runners with frightening force. The sleigh swerved and shook, the captain desperately trying to keep it on course. Dread swept through Ash. It was bad enough to see anyone under attack like this, but what if his parents were on the sleigh, so close to returning after all these years, only to get eaten by hurtlers on the last leg? "They're not going to make it," he gasped. "I have to help them, but how?" "Sing," said a voice in his head. He went cold. No, the stronghold would absolutely lose it. So would Tobu. There was a loud shredding sound as the hurtlers tore the rudder from the back of the sleigh. The captain had no control over it now. They were in serious trouble. Ash couldn't bear it. I might be thrown out into the wilds. I wouldn't stand a chance, not against Leviathans. And what if the Leviathans can control me? Ash began to panic. But what if song weaving can save their lives? Now the hurtlers keened and shrilled with pleasure, sensing they had nearly brought down their prey. The crew were close enough to hear from the battlements now. They were screaming, shouting, doing everything they could to survive. No, I can't let this happen. Ash balled his hands into fists. It's now or never. Now or never. Oh, spirits. Ash tore off his mask, took a big gulp of air, and began to sing. It was strange how easy it was, considering it was something he tried to restrain and hide all his life. Low at first, but growing in volume and strength, Ash sang his song. There were no words, at least they weren't words Ash knew. It was a raw sound, primal and simple, but haunting and utterly enchanting. Ash could feel it in every muscle and tendon in his body, and deep within his bones. He was dimly aware of the crowd passing along the battlements, gasping and yelling in horror. But Ash didn't care. For him, the world appeared to change. The falling snow gleaming like stars in the night sky, lights danced in and out round his body, passing through him like ghosts, but warm to the touch. They gave him strength, connecting him to the surroundings in a way he had never felt before. He had his own aura now, this one the colour of stars. After all these years of having to bottle up his song, denying it even existed, at last he was able to release it and burst out like a torrent. He felt like he was flying, like the fears that had clouded him for so long were burned away in the light of his song. It felt amazing. Peace, Ash sang, channeling his emotions to the thread of the song. Leave! His song aura swirled forth like a blizzard of starlight. It crashed against the mass of the hurtlers' song aura, which immediately pushed back, resisting him, trying to block him from their minds. Resist! Fight! Deny! They roared. Ash felt his brow crease, his fist shake. Come on, guys, work with me here. He sang harder. Peace! Calm! Friends! He's calling them upon us, he heard someone scream. Stop him! Came a voice a million miles away. To Ash, there were only the hurtlers and him. The monsters shrieked and roared. His song aura swirled around the thrashing red war cry, trying to get the hurtlers to calm down. He could see, if it could be called seeing, that there were gaps and cracks in their squirming aura. His warming song aura surged through the cracks like a tumultuous river, and to Ash's delight, instead of resisting, it felt like the hurtlers were calming. They began to join their song with Ash's, diving and swooping and entwining round it, two very different auras suddenly singing the same tune. The blood red of their aura turned into a tranquil ice blue, the thrashing shapes withering away into glowing sparks, dancing with Ash's song like snowflakes in a flurry. The hurtlers dipped their heads, their serpentine tails drooping. Go, Ash sang with all the focus he could muster. The thought channeled from deep within his being, and the song carried his message. Go, please leave us. We're not your enemies. The hurtlers mewed and grunted. It was working. Ash couldn't believe it, but it was working. It was like he was pouring water onto the burning flames of the hurtlers' hunger and fury. They began to slow, and the sleigh managed to pull away. Exhaustion suddenly washed over Ash. He could feel his song getting weaker, his aura flickering in and out of existence, but he'd done what he needed. The sleigh tore up the ramp into the safety of the stronghold. Ash began to laugh weakly. I've done it! I've let the Pathfinders get to safety. This is incredible, which was the last thing he thought before two hunters rudely tackled him to the ground. It's the end of chapter 7.